What's going on, everyone? This is Brady Harrington, and you are listening to the Pump Podcast. Pump stands for Prepare Ultimate Mental Performance. This episode is brought to you by Hoop Culture. Hoop Culture is your off-the-court, unique and authentic basketball streetwear. You can use our 10% off code HCFAM-pump. I repeat, HCFAM-pump to receive 10% off your next order. If you have any questions after the episode or you want to reach out for new ideas, please reach out to Harrington, HARRINGTON, pump@gmail.com, or you can reach out to our Instagram page, PUMP_pod. I really appreciate you giving this a listen. Hope you enjoy. Thank you. Going on, everyone? My name is Brady Harrington. We are back for episode 12 of the Pump Pod. Very excited for this one. Now I have another Whitney Point alum on here. This is Nicky Huston, coach of Whitney Point field hockey program. Nicky, thanks for joining. How's the off season going?
Good, and thank you for having me. It's already busy, even though we just finished last week.
Yeah. Now getting right back to it. So that's great to hear. Just talking with you a little bit in the beginning. Like I said, I like to brag a lot about Whitney Point field hockey, just watching when I went in high school and seeing the success, and now it's continued success. So just like a little bit, just a brief background about yourself, just getting to know you. So when you started in 2010, what was your vision originally for how you wanted to get the program going, and what was your just idea on everything?
Oh, well, I was coming in from another program that I had just recently left because I just had my second daughter. So she was born in June, so I was going to take a little bit of time off of coaching. So when this Whitney Point position opened up, I was like, well, I took 2 months off. I can go back now.
Yeah.
So I worked that out with my family, and I was able to, work out a schedule and figure out, do I want to take, apply for the Whitney Point, and do I want to take it? And can I implement my coaching philosophies in a new district? So that was my biggest, are they going to accept how I see standards of this sport and holding athletes accountable and responsible and respectful? So that's something that's really, really big to me in my program is, there's a standard and it's high, and it's not, like winning high, it's person high. Like, I want to know academically you're sound. I want to know that you're a good person. And yes, you're going to struggle, but I want to know that we can work together and build you and teach you about life through sport. So that's really what my coaching style is all about. It's not about the wins and losses. It's about developing the young female athlete into a successful woman later in life.
Yeah, that's great. And in the beginning, how long so I know like buy-in for every sport at either college or high school level is huge. When did you feel that true buy-in when you had the program? Did it go pretty fast? Did it maybe take a year or two? Then it's a little bit like getting out of the rut, or how was it for you?
That's a really interesting question. So I like this question. It's definitely dependent on how people view you coming in. So I came into Whitney Point as an alum, but I came in as like a rival. So, getting those students that were currently playing on board, because I came in, like, season started in August and I came in first week of September. So I came in during their season to replace there was a little bit of, I think, maybe some animosity because I am an alum, but at the same time, like, I coached for an opposing school, I coached for an opposing club where all those players played. So I think there was a learning curve on both sides as to how we were going to make this work. And then they realized that I don't really care who you play for, as long as when you play for me, you work together. And once they realized that cohesiveness of a team that I was looking for, then everything started to flow. And the first year we achieved their goal, which was to win sectionals, and we did that.
Yeah, that's great. One more question is based off of the beginning process of starting the program, whole new program. How important, because I know I've seen it for myself a little bit, just students that I graduated with, or just knowing other coaches, how truly important, and what's your involvement like with youth club all the way up, like the beginning programs, like youth club, modified, JV. What's that like for you, just being varsity coach, and what does it take to just kind of develop those players all the way through until they play for you?
Right. So I like to be involved bottom to top. So I'm
Yeah,
very involved in my JV varsity program. You know, we're practicing together. We run the same exact practice. So Danny, my I call her my assistant coach. She's really my JV coach.
yeah, yeah.
Phenomenal person. We work
Oh yeah,
so well together. It makes it easy. So we just flow together with our practices. Our kids are together. We separate for certain specific things like corners and some scrimmage play, but for the most part, the varsity is continually practicing with JV. So they're all learning the same exact thing at the same time.
yeah,
They're just on different developmental stages. The modified a little bit different. So I tend to work with them more out of season, taking them to tournaments and stuff. Usually I try to get down to a couple practices, or I will bring them to the varsity field, and like my varsity actually like coaches a practice and puts them through it. So
yeah.
it's
Oh, that's
it's
cool.
the whole
Okay.
program working together at that point in time, just to create that mentorship, leadership, like you get the senior and you get the seventh grader, and having that camaraderie, and I got to see so and so today, or I got to work with this kid, and she worked with me individually. That is huge to a kid
Yeah,
in this day and age. And I feel like a lot of times we lose that in sport because it's only focused on the win. It's not focused on the connection and the mentorship and the player development. And then the youth, I've really slacked on this past 2 years. Like I've struggled with the youth just because my oldest was college age, so we were doing a lot of events getting her recruited. So that's, a time out of my pocket where I have to juggle like mom coach. There's
yeah,
also that
yeah.
part that
No,
I
yeah.
have.
You have
So I have,
your own with family.
right.
Like it's hard to probably juggle all that.
It's definitely hard. So I try to reach them like maybe a tournament or two, but it's more, when they have questions, I answer them. And if I can get to a practice or even send my players to practice, I try to
Yeah,
help them
yeah,
stay involved. But I know like the past 2 years, I've failed in that aspect of my coaching. And I think, this coming year now, Genevieve is all set. I can go back and then we'll start working on Anna.
yeah. And what's that like? So you obviously went through the process. We were talking. You played at William Smith Hobart, and from when you point to there, from your experience to your own daughter's experience now, what's that like for you? And what was your, I guess, how involved were you? And what were your biggest? Because at the end of the day, yes, it is her decision, but you know a lot about this process. So I
Thank
would
you.
assume that I'm hoping that she took a little bit of your word of advice. But what did you tell her along the way, or was it smooth sailing? Was it up and down?
She was actually really easy, and I hate to say that, but she really was. She had some very good options to go to college, and she's one of the few players that I've ever coached that actually knows what she wants to do as a career, and
That's
she's
great.
never wavered
That's
from it,
great.
which you very rarely find, because the average kid is just going to change like probably 10 times through high school and three more times once they get into college.
Yeah.
So that's normal. For G, it was interesting. She took the lead of her education, I would say, and she researched schools. And interestingly enough, they weren't actually even in the United States. So she was looking to travel abroad and play, and we had
Wow.
that all
Wow.
set. She was good. And then, things happen, and things change, and we didn't get her abroad as soon as we wanted to.
Yeah.
The option is still there if she chooses it. I think it would probably be more of a master's program that she chooses over there now. But she did an interview as an eighth grader online, and we were with her, but it was like we set it all up, and she had questions, and she wanted to know. It was all academic, and then the athletic piece came in. So that to me showed, as an eighth grader, here you are, 12, 13, you're taking ownership in your future already. And so she was set as an eighth grader. She was done. We figured she would go. And then that coach that really liked her, and they had the degree and everything, they ended up actually moving to another country. And so they informed us, and we were still good friends with him and everything, and highly respect his intelligence, because he's definitely a coach that I can reach out to and pick his brain and help me along the way. So he actually kept the connection with the next coach there. So she has that opportunity, but she ultimately chose Syracuse University. And we visited, and I knew the first time we visited with her on a clinic day, that was her school. And that was a year before she decided, but I wasn't saying anything because it's her choice. So I always, recommend to the kids, you need to feel like you're home. Will you stay if you don't play? And if it's a no, then it's not your
The
school.
exact thing we say too.
And she loved it. And it just took her visiting other schools and talking to other coaches to know that that was really her ultimate decision, was Syracuse University.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm like, first of all, I'm a little upset with my eighth grade self now hearing about this. This that's very impressive that she took it upon herself to do things like that. And like kind of piggybacking off of that, just because a part of this podcast, I do like a lot the recruitment process for high schoolers, and asking as many questions as you can, like you said, is so important. I mean, we tell our recruits no question's a bad question because they're truly like I don't think some people realize how clueless some people are, which is understandable because you never know coming from what program how much they actually talk about college athletics, as they're worried about how many wins they can get that year and just developing them as up and coming man or woman. And it's it's great just right in the beginning of that process already having those interviews, and it's going to be uncomfortable a little bit, but I think that's what made the process. I'm assuming that's what made the process for her so easy in your eyes, is because she did the work ahead of time and realized what she wants to do and had some self reflection and just knows what she wants.
Yes, I think it made it easy, really did. And she's shy to begin with, but taking that ownership of, okay, I'm going to set up an interview and we're going to talk about what this actually looks like. And then going into the next ones, like she had her list of questions. So anytime she thinks of a question, we put it in the notes of her phone and it's labeled. So this is
Nice,
something
nice.
super easy that any parent or coach could pick up, is when you're in that conversation and they have a question, and maybe as a coach, you may not know the answer, or you're like, that's a really great question. I ask the athlete to put it in the notes of their phone. Because now when they're in a conversation with a college coach, hey, there's one calling me tonight. What do I say? Pull out your notes. What have we talked about?
Yeah, it's not that
And
hard
it's
to do.
all right there
Not
for
that
them.
hard to do. Yeah, and to be quite frank, I mean, how much of a say if you have an hour-long conversation, how much of that can you truly remember just keeping that in your head? Or,
Right.
like, going down the road, like, note taking is very simple, not, like, hard to do like that. That is recommended for athletes, so it's great. And this kind of sparked another question for me while you're talking about it. I don't know if you have a number on it since you've been at Whitney Point in 2010, but I very well know that you produce a lot of high level college athletes just coming through your program. When you are coaching them throughout their time, all the way through, how much, like, do you have certain sections of your coaching to prepare them from college? Not even just on the field, but off the field? Like, how does that, because I know I haven't gotten into high school coaching yet, but I've always wondered how much do you focus on that next year? Because yes, that's another important 4 years of their life, but you need to worry about getting that state championship this year. So I'm curious to know what that process is like for you, keeping your athletes focused on that year, but also ready to go for college the following year.
So I think that's a really good question. So I think the way I coach, I constantly drop those nuggets of, any one of you can play in college. And these are things that you're going to have to know, like difficult conversations, fun conversations, leadership. Like we vote on captains every year as a team, but then I asked them to vote on a captain mentor. And we started
Hmm.
implementing this probably 4 years ago. And I
Okay.
was like, I don't know why I didn't think of this 20 years ago.
Can
But
you
there's
explain the captain mentor a little bit?
absolutely. As coaching, I'm realizing like kids are losing the ability to be leaders. They're following. They want to have, I'm going to follow you. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to follow you. Everything is social media based. But who's going to lead?
Yeah.
So we decided that we were going to take the captain mentor selections, and that's going to be somebody that we see at practice who isn't ready to really be a captain, but is showing those leadership qualities that we like. And we're going to train them for a year under the captains that are elected. So now that I have my captains for my team, I also have my captain mentors, and it's 2 to 3 kids typically. One will join, two will join the captain meeting that we do. So they understand how the coin toss works.
Hmm.
They
Okay.
understand when I'm having a difficult conversation, I bring in, the captains and bring in a captain mentor. This is what's happening. How can we fix it amongst the team? Or this is going really good. How can we keep this going? So all the different aspects of leadership, but bring that into a younger player so they start learning how to lead so we can get the next round
Wow.
ready as they come through.
Okay.
So it is a process, but I'm very happy with the way that's working. And the captain mentors seem to be taking more of a leadership role by the end of season. So instead of having 3 captains, I may have 6 captains by the end of season, which is huge.
Okay, so you just even throughout the season, it might change.
They stay as mentors, but their leadership qualities are showing our captain
Okay.
at that
So
point.
in the beginning of the year, what's a normal number for a captain, mentor, and regular captains?
I would have 2 to 4 regular captains, and then anywhere from probably 2 to 3 mentors is what I would pick, because that would be a lot to handle at once.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you're saying throughout the season as time goes, is there a possibility, say if one of the girls on your team shows those qualities halfway through the season, you're like, oh, they might display this. Would you or have you considered even halfway through the season labeling them as
So I haven't
captain?
okay, so in Whitney Point, I have not switched a captain mentor up to a captain. I let them take more leadership responsibility, if that makes sense,
Okay.
without
Okay.
handing the captain band. I have removed captains before for poor leadership and replace them with somebody else. So, and that was one of the hardest days for me. And I had this
Yeah.
conversation,
Very
but I'm like, this is going to be so much growth for you. So it is a demotion. And we talk about demotions. Like, we need you to do this or you will be demoted. Like, and it's not a bad thing. It's a growth thing. You're
Yep.
going to see that in the real world as well. So you can earn it back, but you need to show me you're putting in the time and the effort and the correction that we're teaching to get that back.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there's always, if it's removed, there's always a pathway back, but are you willing to do it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so since you've done this before, and it sounds like it is as a coach very difficult to do, going through the athlete's mind, what do you think? What are some good things, or what are some good reactions and bad reactions to that? So
To the removing of a captain?
yeah, like have you had both ends of the stick before?
So yeah, so removing, I mean, hardest day, you're gonna get tears. They're heartbroken. But
Yeah.
when you can really get to them and explain why you got to that point, and it's not like one day they show up and I'm like, okay, I need your captain band. It's a process. There's a lot of conversation in that. And then it comes to that point where you're like, I just think that captain right now is not for you.
Yeah.
We need to work
Okay.
on these aspects to bring you back. And is it that season? No, typically not. It's something that they need to develop as a person and a player. But adding someone in as a captain, I think that's easy because the team is going to see why they're there
Mm,
because they've shown all the qualities that we're looking for. So I think there's a lot of high emotion there. But like when it's a demotion, there's a lot of sad emotion and just really struggle and mental, and a lot of conversations are happening between myself and that player during that time, and sometimes even the parents because they don't understand. But when you're teaching the fact that we need you to be able to lead, and when you lead in a positive manner. Yes, there's difficult conversations, and yes, there is different tones and
yeah.
different ways that you're speaking. Teaching kids how to get off the cellular device and
Uh,
have a conversation
uh,
is totally different because there's no tone on social media. You have exclamation, you have shouty capitals, but maybe it's excitement and maybe it's not me. So there's a lot that our younger society right now has to learn about
yeah.
communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you figured out a way yet to get people off their phones? Because I haven't.
I've literally made them put them on the bench at practice and not touch them. This past year they were a little bit worse with that, but there's years we've taken them and said they go over there and not till the end of practice.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a given. Like for us, like games practice don't even come close to them. It's just like I feel like even off the court and field,
Yeah.
they're
So
just.
our
I mean,
school did.
you can't control. You said the school.
The school took them, which they have
Okay.
this they call like a Yanner pouch. And at first there was a lot of pushback, but honestly, talking to the kids, they love it. It's a break. It's off. They technically can't have it. I mean, could they? Probably they could get around it. But they really have enjoyed it. I've seen their academic success increase because there's less distraction on the phone.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I
huge.
mean, there's an incredible amount of distraction.
Yes.
I kind of. So I graduated in 2016. So I literally went through the time of the end of the flip phones
Right.
into like the iPod touches or even the nanos before that, like Walkman. I was like, I feel like my group, like maybe a year before and a year after too, were like the way out of everything. Like in that evolution, once it got to like the iPod touches and into like the smartphones, it's so scary. It's so scary like what the distractions are like and how that can even carry over to your players and is anyone involved around you. I got a little sidetracked because I did want to ask you this too. So the last thing about with your leaders and how to manage your leaders, for myself too, sometimes I need to find that balance of the way you treat a leader compared to, say, a freshman, because obviously the freshmen are going to need a little bit more coaching. It's new for them, everything like that. But you don't want to. I've always been concerned if, say, if you need to get into your leader in front of their teammates, how that's gonna, I guess, pan well, like how they look at that leader or how it goes over. So, in a roundabout way, my question is to you: do you have a certain balance to how you coach your leaders? Because obviously, it's easy to say get into a freshman and yell at them a little bit. Do you Is that the same way with your leaders, or do you kind of ease up a little bit and give them a little bit more leeway?
So I have a different type of coaching style. I typically don't yell.
Yeah,
They know when I'm not happy about their play, but it's
that's good.
not I'm not yelling at them. I'm literally teaching them how to fix it and asking if they understand. And a lot of times it's understanding that child's learning way. But I have a system where I typically don't pull athletes aside unless I need to. And that conversation would be done not in a group setting. Obviously, it would be between Danny and myself and the player. Um, and that happens probably like 5 times a season. Maybe sometimes it's really, really positive. Sometimes I'm just checking in on them as a
Yeah.
person, and
Okay.
I don't need everyone else hearing the conversation. So a lot of our coaching and direction and leadership is actually done in a team circle. So I say bring it in and no double parking. So no double parking means you can't hide behind another player. I
Okay.
need to see
Okay.
everyone.
Cool.
So everyone, okay, so think about it. If I'm standing behind, I'm in the second row. I don't feel like I have the voice as my player in the first row. So if I make them all stand on an equal playing field where they all feel they're at the same level, they will all speak.
Okay.
And that's where I get a lot of interaction and a lot of leadership is when I say, okay, it'll be the end of the first quarter and I bring them in, no double parking, and you'll see them line up every single time, no double parking. And if they are, I wait and they'll move us. And I might say, no double parking, move and let her in.
Okay. That's
And
cool.
they laugh about it, but I've taken that into all the
Yeah,
different areas
no
of my
one's hiding.
coaching
No one's hiding.
and they find it funny.
Yeah.
But it gives them a voice and it allows them to say, well, this is what's going well. I always ask for their thought first so I can see if we're on the same page. And if we're not,
Anytime you huddle up.
anytime,
Wow.
how
Okay.
how is this going? Do you feel like this is going well? What are your thoughts? What are we doing well?
Cool.
I always start off with a positive. It's a sandwich approach. Positive, something we can fix,
Yep.
end with a positive.
Okay.
So there's always a positive of what we're doing good. What are we struggling with as a team? And it's typically my leaders that are speaking up.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when this happens, it gives my freshmen the voice and the position and the equality to be like, I think we're doing well with this, or I think we're struggling with this. And they start to talk. So with 25 players on the team, I'm probably going to get 15 kids right there
Nice.
early in the season talking because they feel they're equals, which I find really big because I want every kid's voice heard there.
Yeah. Yeah. And no, that's good because I feel like with some programs, not every voice is heard, or they feel like I'm out of place right now because I'm a freshman or sophomore, or I haven't been a part of the team too much. But no, I really like that concept of how you all go about things. So great, great. So switching gears just a little bit, like we talked about a little bit already. So since you've joined the program, 9 state championships for the program, then overall program at 10. And just with that success, for starters, I do want to ask, so you guys coming off the win this year in the state championship, when you have your team next year, are you trying to bring most of those principles and philosophies to this new team, or are you more of like a, hey, clean slate, we're a complete new team now, new culture? So how do you, to keep that consistency, what are some of your keys to staying at a high level like you are?
So the pillars are always going to be the same. The accountability, responsibility, respect. That's not going to change from year to year. So and think about your accountability might change. Your responsibilities on my team might change.
Yes.
But your respect should never change. I will respect you and I expect the same in return. So I think having that as the basis and then we just build off of that. So I like the clean slate idea and I do let them know like you're coming in. It doesn't matter what you did last year because every team is working in the off season to come at you because you always have that target. So
Yeah. Yep.
We can teach you that if you don't worry about the win and you worry about us, our team, our goal, what are we doing here? Why are we here? Why? Every kid, why are you here? Why do you
What's the
play?
reason? Yeah.
Yeah. So when they have that validity to why they're there, that makes everything connect. Because now if I'm there for friendship and well, I'm here to become a better player to reach my Division I scholarship, those are two polar opposites. And we have those in every program and every team. How do you make those work together? And that is the connecting piece every single year. So it's not changing the foundation of what I do. It's teaching them how to work together to reach one common goal of the program. And that goal is set by them. And that goal could waver, it could change. So we do a lot of different goal setting, and that goal setting changes every 15 minutes in a game,
Okay.
which
Okay.
sounds crazy, but people
Yeah. Yeah.
coach
Yeah.
a game. I don't coach a game. I coach 15 minutes.
Okay. So you go
And
by
then we
intervals.
Yeah, and then we reevaluate. And we bring them in, no double parking. What's going well?
And do you literally say like, hey, what's our new goal now? Or
Absolutely. And it's written on the board. And did we achieve that goal? And if we did not achieve that goal, are we keeping that goal for the next part?
yeah.
Do we need
Yeah.
do we need to change it? Maybe we need to look at a different goal so we can achieve that goal. So
Yeah.
there's a lot that happens in that 2-minute break of my team huddle. And then they're right back out.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's fun to watch them come off and be like, we did it. We did our
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah. Yeah. They accomplish, and it's good because now they're present. They're not looking at the big picture of the whole game. They're just kind of
Correct.
breaking it down one.
Yeah. They're accountable for that goal.
Yeah. Okay. And besides those goals, say before the game or say just for the season in general, do you have any other long-term, short-term goals that stand
So
out?
we do. We have a meeting and we write it all down that every kid, and this is usually a full practice it takes to do these goals. So I'll ask them what their goals are for the season. And they might give me,
Do you
a
do
really,
individuals or do you just do group meetings?
so I have done individuals in the past. I don't focus a lot on individual goals. There's some years that I do.
Or I mean, individual meetings. Like, is it just group meetings for the goals, or is it okay? So it's strictly all group meetings for.
It's all group meeting because we are a team. If I was an individual sport, then yes, I would do individual goals. But I don't, because then that creates a lot of animosity where, okay, so my goal is to have, I don't know, 10 defensive saves. So in my mind, I'm like, well, why don't you trust your goalie? Like that's, but you're part of team. So that's her job, not your job.
Yeah.
And teaching them that. So when you remove the individual aspect of it, I have all of my kids earning individual goals, whether they realize it or not.
Yes.
And a lot of them earn accolades that they didn't even know existed because of their ability to compete on a team
Yeah,
that
it'll
plays
come
together.
naturally. I'm assuming like if you have that buy-in, it'll come naturally. All those goals.
I mean, it does, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And kind of with that, so there's just an example, like talking about your daughter. You said she committed to Syracuse, and you've had. I'm trying to think. Is that the normal? When's like the normal rate or time of the year for your players to be committing?
It depends. So because when they hit June 15th of their junior year, basically, so between their sophomore and junior year, that June 15th date, if they are a Division I recruit, that's typically when they get recruited because of the timelines and all the NCAA regulations. But it could be after that as well for Division I because they all recruit on a different schedule.
Yep.
So some colleges that wanted her didn't recruit her before she committed. So, and I knew that, but they never reached out. And I'm like, as a coach and a parent, I'm not going to tell you like, okay, she's highly leaning towards this school. Are you interested in her? So she could look at you.
Yeah.
So that's the recruiting area that I think is a little bit gray. And I wish like all the coaches Division I, II, and III would be on the same page because I think that gets confusing to a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
And even a 40-year-old, it gets confusing, right? I think that there could be better, clearer dates and interests of what they're looking for in their programs. But I guess, I'm putting together a puzzle in high school and they're putting together a puzzle at college. My pool is much smaller than theirs.
Yeah.
So that's also the struggle. Like they do need those flexibilities on timelines and stuff like that. So I guess, I understand it. It's just It's a very confusing gray area.
Yeah, no, I can. And the reason I asked that question is because, say, if there's just an example, say if you have 4 or 5 year athletes going into the season, they're already committed somewhere, and there's a little bit of a two-sided question. Have you ever seen, and you don't have to get any like specific, but compared an athlete that has committed and already has a team locked in for the following season as a senior, and an athlete that does not? Do you see any type of difference just in regards to how they are on and off the field? Because I've always wondered, like I said, I haven't seen that for myself yet, but I tell recruits personally, hey, make sure you're never going to get senior year basketball ever again. Focus on that. Elmira College will be here when you're done. We're not going anywhere. Focus on your year first, because I feel like some people say halfway through the year, you're starting to see that lack of interest because they're already excited for the following season going to that next big school. So I know there's a lot to this, but what's just your thoughts on that aspect of?
So that happens a lot, and I see it definitely in my program just because so many do go off to college, but they all
Yeah.
go at different levels. So I let them know, like, you can play D1, 2, 3. Like, that part to me doesn't matter. I want you happy and I want you educated for your career choice.
Mhm. Mhm.
My players that literally follow the path that I give them usually commit early because they've done their work. They know where they want to go. They've already done the ID clinics, they've done the research academically, and they've been on campus. So they know what it feels like.
Okay.
My other ones are really uncertain. They're typically undecided on a major. They have no clue where they want to go. They don't know if they really want to play a sport or don't want to play a sport.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like, I'm 15, I'm 16. How am I going to
And
make
that's
this
tough. This is
200 to
one of the
$400,000
biggest decisions of your life.
decision,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So I see a lot, I would say stress and anxiety
Yeah. I was about to
for
say, does that
them.
affect play? You think?
It absolutely does. There's days where they just show up and they're exhausted mentally and, maybe they were
They're so
having a
worried about.
recruiting call or they had to get an application in and
Yep.
they're like, I don't know how many more applications and essays that I need to write to get in.
Mhm.
Like that's a lot of stress plus the excitement of senior year. So I think
Yeah.
like,
You want to live
it's
that
the
out.
roller coaster of emotions.
Okay. Yeah.
So that plays a huge part on their ability to perform.
Yeah. I'd say so. And what are the negatives to an athlete that already committed? Do you think they sometimes have moments where they're almost too relaxed and don't have like a motivation to impress other schools?
So I don't know if it would be that. I would say sometimes I'll see kids, I wouldn't even say not work as hard because they still have to earn it in my practice.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't play well today. Well, okay, well, earn it. Like, I know that you can do this. Why are we not doing this? Or exactly. Like, do you think your college coach wants to see you do that? Like, I don't think so. So it's again, accountability, responsibility, respect. So it all comes right back down to, can I develop that player that committed to you
Hmm.
further than where they are right now? How can I help the player that has not committed that wants to commit? And what about my girl over here who's lost? She doesn't know if she even wants to go to college. How can I help her at the same time? And now times that by 25 and teenage girls. So it's like, there's one of me and you do the best that you can and you try to give the advice and encourage them to be cognizant and own their journey because I'm not going to make it for them. I will help them, but I am not going to make the decision for them. I will give them questions to ask and questions to think about, but I'm not ultimately doing their interview. So I remind them that when they're contacting coaches, their parents should not be writing the emails. The college coaches are smart enough to know this is a
You can tell.
40-year-old
Oh yeah.
writing
Oh
to me.
yeah. No,
This is a 15-year-old
I've seen a
writing
fair
to me.
share of those. Yeah.
So I'm like, they want to know you as a player and you as a person. They care about your character, they care about your academics, and they care about who you are as a person and what you are doing outside of sport. That is huge. They already know what you can do on the field and they know what they can develop on you. So, who are you is what they really need to know. And do you fit? Does that person here fit into what I'm building over here? And teaching them that it's a lot. It's huge.
It's hard to find that in general. Like some might, like you said, could be an easy process in a couple schools, and like we had a player that went to us and like one other school maybe, and reached out to us and just said, "Hey, coach, I don't want to go anywhere else or go to any more visits or do any more applications. Like, I loved it. I loved it, Elmira. Like, I want to." We're like, sure, 'cause even though we want that player bad, we highly recommend to them, hey, go see 4, 5, 6 different schools, as many as you can, so you can experience all the different backgrounds and just the different cultures per team, and get to know all the players and who values you and who's important to you. But it's crazy how like wide of a variety it is. So that process just makes it that much more interesting and intriguing to always hone in on, especially being at the age they're at, making one of the biggest decisions of their lives. All of that compiled into school and that next game ahead. So it's a lot. And I've always been curious of that because I can definitely see it with some players the way they play once they're committed and they're a little bit more laxed. And I've seen with other players where them being committed, and that happened with our player I just mentioned, them being committed was a good thing for them. And it was like just a breath, like a huge relief, just straight off.
Yeah, the stress is off.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, now I do not think about it whatsoever. I'm locked in. Everything's good. Let's go out and win a state championship. So that whole aspect is it's definitely very, very fun to tap into. So switching gears a little bit, we talked about a little bit just for you yourself, going to a lot of conferences, camps, continuing to just develop yourself overall because, with the success rate that you're having, just with your players, getting them to where they want to go, and also just overall winning as a team and just developing great leaders, like you said. What's your next challenge, I guess, with where you're at as a coach going? So it's going to be your 15th year, right?
Yes, 15th year at Whitney Point.
15th year, besides just like the wins and losses and all the success rate, what's your biggest challenges for you as a coach, and how can you continue to better yourself still?
So, I mean, trusting the process, and my process has changed over the years big time. So I do attend a lot of conferences and watch and listen to a lot of different speakers, coaches, not only in my sport, but in other sports. Like
Yeah,
even
great.
I'll go to ice hockey games, the professional ice hockey games. I love them. So much fun. But I can get plays and drills and different things as I sit there. I'm like, this is great.
You can
And
implement it for your drills. Yep.
I can implement it. And people think I'm absolutely crazy when I do that. But I'm like, this actually works because I can redesign this, use the same technique they had, and bring it into my sport. So being able for me to, I call it stay a student. So I ask my students to stay a student, but I hold myself accountable as a coach to stay a student. So that way I can stay up with the game and still learn everything that changes. Because when I played back in the 90s, it is not the same game that they are playing today. So there is a big difference. And there was a time in my coaching career, I'd say I learned a huge learning curve for me when I took over the Whitney Point program, and they were good. We're athletic. We have a history of being good even before I took it over.
Yes. Yeah.
And I famous Coach Holleran, right? So I'm at a chicken barbecue, and he always paid attention to me and my practices and everything. And he walked by, and I said to him, I said, how do I get him to win? And he goes, Nikki, and he looked at me, he goes, winning will take care of itself. And he walked away.
Nice.
That's it.
Hey,
And I was like, all right, back to the drawing board.
Yeah,
That was in 2012. And so I was like, all right, I gotta reevaluate everything I'm doing as a coach, and I need to grow. And when I realized that I was actually coaching the wrong way, and I was still successful, but I wasn't reaching the kids where I wanted them or knew where their full potential was.
Yeah.
That's when I realized, why am I doing this? Why do I make this job so hard? It is not that hard. It's really not. It's every sport in one. You can literally bring in football into field hockey. You can bring in basketball. You can bring in lacrosse. You can bring in soccer. They're all the same. It's just a different ball. That's all it is. There's a few different rules.
Yeah.
But when I realized like all of these are the same, then I was like, I had to switch. And I literally teach the basics. And if the kid can play the basics of any sport, how can you stop the athlete who knows how to move? And that's what I watch other teams, and I watch other sports, and I watch other, like, even collegiate players and teams go. And I'm like, if they only, like, all they have to do is turn, all they have to shift. And, and in my head, I'm like, I'm literally coaching them as this is happening. And I'm like, oh, I wish I had I always joke to my kids, I wish I had like a little remote control just so I could turn you just a little bit, sit on your shoulder, be like, I'm just going to turn this so you can see what I see. And then you're fully going to get it. And when that happened, the championships happened. 2013, we went to state semifinals and we lost. And I was like, I'm going to fix my problem. I know what I did wrong as a coach. I know that I failed my team that year that had a goal. And I didn't do my job as a coach to get them where they needed to go. Where now I can give them the tools, but they're children that I'm coaching. And I never know what I'm getting when I'm coaching kids. Every day is different. So can they do what I'm giving them to reach their goal is the next question that I have. Like, am I keeping them on track?
Yeah.
Right. I know that I have enough knowledge and I stay a student so I can develop and change, but are they grasping what I'm teaching?
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing is with the X's and O's and everything. Yeah, you can have a high level field hockey IQ, you know your stuff, know the plays, know the drills, but you need to adjust off of your athletes as well. And that's great that Coach Holleran just dropped that little
Yeah,
piece of advice
loved
and
it.
lots of
It's
That's
that
incredible.
little nugget, you take those
Well,
golden nuggets.
yeah, and it goes a long way though,
Absolutely.
because he could fully explain to you whatever, but that's for you to figure out because it goes that's how the winning did it for himself in his own way, and then it's now doing it for in your own way. And it works wonders for different people. And I think when you're too focused on the winning, everything is based off of did we win that game, how many wins did we have that season, then that's when you're kind of bringing the program into a. I think when it comes, basically what I'm saying is when it comes naturally to everything you do, that what Coach Dollar said, it'll fall into place.
Right. So now we don't focus on winning at all. And everyone's like, well, don't you ask them to win? And I was like, no, I actually asked them to make as many mistakes as possible. Do it and screw it up. I'm giving you something. I want you to do it and do it wrong. Because to me as a coach, if you're doing what I'm asking and you're doing it right, I'm not challenging you. If you're doing what I'm asking and you're doing it wrong and you're struggling with it and you're making those mistakes I'm asking, then there's growth that's happening.
Yeah.
So our losses, even though they're not shown a lot on our record, they're every single day in practice. And that's where, everyone's like, oh, you win all the time, you're not learning anything. And I'm like, we are. We learn a lot from a win. We also learn a lot from a loss, but we learn every day in practice. And when we change our thinking to that changed the entire coaching in my program as well as my player buy-in.
Awesome. And kind of with that, we were talking about development for you yourself as being a student, still being a coach, and your players. What have you picked up on over time, just in regards to player and coach relationship? What is something that you had or through your eyes, what have you seen change just over time in regards to athlete body language, how they react to tougher coaching, or how they react to a negative experience in the game? What have you seen, just say these past 5-10 years, just with your athletes and other athletes that you've coached against or other coaches?
So excellent question. I love this. So I pay attention to body language. I really do. The way they
Yeah.
move and literally even like how they interact with their teammates. You get the player that comes in and their head is down or their shoulders are forward, or maybe they're carrying 4 bags into practice that day.
Speaks volumes.
It absolutely does. So, we teach them, head up, shoulders back, and we literally practice walking.
Okay.
It sounds crazy.
Yeah, no,
But we practice being able to walk together. And what that feels like when you walk with confidence, not that you're walking in there going, I'm winning this game. You're walking in there going, we're going to play together and we're going to play our best game that we can today. That's the difference. And when you teach them how to walk, and I record them, like I'll show them their walk, be like, okay, what do you think?
Yeah, what do you see?
Go back and do it again. And there's practices where I've spent 30 minutes teaching them how to walk in pairs. And just having that impact, it sounds like the craziest idea, right? But to them, when they walk into a room, they walk into a classroom, they walk down the hallway where maybe they're not, in the popular group at school, or maybe they're in a new school, or they're struggling, or they're in a new program and they're really nervous. When they walk in with confidence, they literally can own it. They own the room. They own the classroom. Exactly. And so teaching them that aspect of it, I think, watching the body language change. And you may even hear me say as stand up, because they're slumping forward and this. I'm like, no, carry yourself with some pride. I don't care if you completely just did it wrong and you committed that foul. Carry yourself with pride. You're going to fix it. Like, that's okay. And teaching them that that's okay to make the mistake, but still be confident in what you're doing. That's huge. As far as like other body language, like you can see the laughter, and you can see like kids that are bubbly, or you take the personality test. And I've done a lot of these over the years because I have a minor in psych, so I love this. Um, Even the colors that they wear. So you can tell whether they're a person who likes their own space. So I meet them at their own space. You don't engage that space. There's other kids that they need a hug. They just need a high five. That you meet them where they're at, and you learn their personality. And when you can connect on that, they will connect with you. So even though I'm a very direct, straightforward personality, I have to be that bubbly. I have to be the hug. I have to be the high five, even though that's not my direct personality. But if I can connect to that child, I can grow with them, and they can grow with me. And then they blossom. And from where they are in 7th grade to when they graduate, it's simply just amazing as people in my program,
Yeah,
not
that's
players.
incredible to see. I mean, that's obviously one of the beauties of sports in general is having that experience along the way. You look back on that, and some of those, just like you talked about the walking and walking with confidence. I mean, walking to a job interview, walking into just anything important once they do get into the workforce and they get into just anything with starting a family. And I think just you can piece together one thing I did. I remember doing that with field hockey. Like I did this with coach, and I'm now 35, 40 years old. I'm still doing it. But I don't know. That stuff it really does go a long way. And speaking of the bubbly personalities, in your opinion, because yes, there is a time you need to get serious, you need to lock in on everything. But what in a perfect world, I don't know if there's like a percentage to this or just something else that you have a thought on. But what part of practice should be fun, bubbly, everyone, all the athletes, it's a little bit more laid back and enjoying themselves. And also at the same time, because sometimes athletes get to that funny, goofy phase, but there's a time of practice you need to.
Cool down,
There's
right?
no
Yeah.
joking around. You need to like for us like with the scouting report and just like going through the other team's actions. Hey, this ain't a time to joke around right now. So what's your take on just the blend in practice of let's have some fun and hey let's get serious, stop joking around.
Right. So, I mean, at high school, definitely they need to have fun. If they're not having fun, they're probably not going to play
It's
the
the most
following year.
important. Yep.
Right. So, but at the same time, it's like you hold them accountable to get their workout in. So the beginning of practice for us is always conditioning. And this has changed a lot over my years, but I found a conditioning that works, that helps build camaraderie amongst them. They can talk while they do it, but they are literally cranking out sets, and they're sweating and exhausted after the first 45 minutes of practice. And we haven't even started ball handling.
But what is it in a very brief description? I'm
Uh,
going to hear about that now in case you could use that.
so I do sets of core, footwork, and a run.
Okay.
And so I implement what it is like to play 15 minutes of hockey at a time, conditioning.
And how is it still them being able to communicate?
Right. So they can still communicate because they need to encourage each other to finish it because it's not easy.
Yep.
So, as hard as it is for them to do it at the same time, they need to be looking around to their teammates and
Someone else
encouraging
doing
them.
it.
So this is where you see that leadership role come in, and those leadership mentors that we talked about earlier. You're going to see those younger kids speak up and encourage a teammate. And you'll hear me say, like, mind over matter, like your body will do it if you tell your mind to tell your body to do it. And, once they hit that point where they're exhausted, but their body still goes, they've realized that they've trained their brain to tell their body to go, even though they're exhausted. And then you hear the verbal come out of, come on, guys, we can do this. We do high fives. It's simple. Who knew high fives would be so easy? Or they work together. So if you're one of the first ones done with your reps, you jump over to the next kid and you help them.
To help them out.
And so that type of camaraderie is huge. And even like running, we run with a partner. So you can pick somebody that's struggling with running, or you can pick somebody that's maybe faster than you or your speed. And can you work together to increase your speed, or can you stay with a faster one?
Yeah.
Can you help encourage the one that's not as fast as you?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different things that we do that way that they just really now at this point take it upon themselves to do. So I don't really have to say it. It's like it's built into the program of supporting each other.
Which is very important. There should be a lot of what I've came to see is that with a lot of just not even winning, like obviously winning programs, but successful programs in general, there's a lot of things that are already built in that does not need to be adjusted. There's no questions about it, and it's kind of like just routine and instinctive.
Yes.
So having all of that is no, that's great to hear because I want to come up with something too for not just conditioning, the other back and get creative with a little bit, something to change it up because I'm big into variety and just change in practice. Don't want to routine and built-in things are important, but you got to change it up.
Right. So I try to give them fun drills too. Like this year, like there's years where I'll stick with repetitive drills to like drill it into their head what I want them to do.
Yeah,
But this year I changed it up to make it seem more fun, and they found it very fun, and they were like, we love this drill, we love this drill. And so like every day I would try to come with like 3 brand new drills that they had never ran, and I would have to explain it, which to me got frustrating because I'm like, this is taking too long. And then for them to actually connect and get it, I'm like, nope, trust your process, Nikki. Like this is gonna work. And it did when we hit postseason, because our ability to pass a ball in postseason increased tremendously. And
and
I'm like,
stuff like
okay, so
that.
what I worked on that I got frustrated with and they loved worked. And
Yeah,
I went completely outside of field hockey to find those drills and concepts that I wanted to bring in. And it was very interesting when the kids are like, where did you find this? I was like, well, it's not even our sport. It's
yeah,
something completely
yeah.
different. And I changed it to meet our sport, and you love it. So I'm going to keep it.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
And I think this is so I got two more questions for you. So one, I always do. So I'm kind of starting this near the end of the episode. It's called the 1-and-1. So just like in basketball, you're in the bonus. So it's kind of
Hmm.
like the bonus section of it, like the 1-on-1 part of it, like my take on it and your take on it. So it sounds like you're very into just multiple aspects of sports and bringing it into your program. What is your take on for your athletes or athletes in general in regards to just being a one sport specific athlete compared to that 2 or 3 sport athlete in high school? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What's your thoughts on that?
I'm a huge proponent of multi-sport athlete.
And what's your big reasoning about
Because every sport connects. And if you can teach basketball, then you should be able to teach field hockey. And if you can teach football, you can teach wrestling. Like you can connect all of these sports,
it? Yeah,
and having them play multiple sports. When I'm teaching a defensive zone or a defensive man to man, I relate it to basketball. Ball you man, super easy.
yep,
Right? Where's goal side? Like all of these things, they all connect. And if they don't have the chance or they don't play that sport, it's very hard then to relate it. So then you have to go back to almost like youth days and explain how that works, because you have to teach something they've never learned.
yeah, yeah. And that you kind of basically had what I had with that is I mean, and I think the only other thing I can think of is physically, I think it balances out the athlete as well. Like field hockey, there's an overload maybe sometimes on certain parts of your legs that you use, and also when you're playing basketball, maybe it's a different part of your legs now. It goes from like the calves to the hamstrings that are being used more, and then you move on over to softball and stay more upper body. So I think physically as well, I think it balances out the athlete and it lowers that physical burnout on the body, continuing the one after another, just continue to play the same thing. And as you get into college, that could affect them. So and so my last thing too, I think it all this circles everything back around from the start to being. I look at the clock and we're already 55 minutes in. It's cruising.
Sorry.
So because as a coach, you sometimes don't want to worry too much about what others think negatively. Like keep that noise aside. But I guess positively, say college coaches, for example. I know what were your 3 pillars again? You said
Accountability, responsibility, and respect.
okay. So besides those 3 words, say if a college coach were to walk up to you and describe one of your players, what are the 2 best words or characteristics or personality traits you want to hear from that college coach? And you would be like, hey, this player is this and that. And you're like, okay, thank you very much, coach. I did my
I
work.
would say
My work is done.
a team player, definitely team player. I would love to hear from them. And also conceptually smart.
Conceptual. Can you explain that a little bit?
So just the concepts of any sport. So yes, you can pass a ball, but do you understand why you're passing that ball? Do you understand where it's going next? So when they understand the concept of what they're doing and they can relate it in a split second in a game, then they become smart. Because yes, there's one concept, but there's actually 8 on every ball. Do they understand those 8? And so that's something that I teach. And I don't even know if this crew even realizes that I've taught it. I started teaching it years ago, and I would break it down. But every time you have a ball, you have 8 choices. And you need to make those choices in the first 3 seconds.
Okay.
Or wait until second 7. And second 7 is very long to have a ball.
Yeah.
So if you can move the ball in less than 3 seconds, you should technically never lose possession.
Yeah. And you're saying you have overall, once the ball is at your stick, you have 8 different choices. Like there's 8 different options with the ball.
Yes. Okay. And you have to know which one to execute and when.
Yeah. And I like that a lot, because another reason why I began this podcast is because I think the physical one-on-one trainings in sports are just blowing up. Just how everything's going. Like, I know basketball too, just working with that one-on-one trainer looks so cool on Instagram when they're doing that really cool crossover and dunking it. But I feel like the good trainers, well, the reason why I began the podcast is because I want to take that and bring it to the mental side as well. So I think you should mentally train just as much as doing those physical workouts. But one-on-one trainers I've watched or just seen their videos or talked with, they are huge on read and reacting within those workouts, whether it's practice or the one-on-one session. And I think, like you said, the 8 different choices you need to make. Once it comes to game, you need to be prepared on what is that one option, those 2 options that you can use without and it's making the right choice. Because I had this problem as a player. I sometimes going into a move, I already thought about what move I wanted to do before I saw what the defense gave me. And I'm thankful that my coach told me that, because it was 100% true. And I try to bring that over to my players. Yeah, I think that's great that even things like that, you give your players that option to read and react and make that game like and make those right read choices to speed up the process. So, I don't know, but yeah, other than that, for starters, speaking of seeing different sports, I need to come by. And do you do anything practice wise, like with your travel teams? When's that get going?
So we already started.
Okay, so you're getting right to it. You're right to it.
We're already going, yeah. So that's Monday nights. I have a team actually headed to Virginia tomorrow, so we'll leave tomorrow morning and go play.
Awesome. Okay, so
yeah.
I'll have to reach out to you because I'd love to see you practice, and hopefully I can bring a couple of things over to my group as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. But other than that, Whitney Point field hockey coach Nicky Huston, this was incredible. Thank you for hopping on, and episode 12 was a great one.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you to everyone who has taken the time out of their day to give the Pump podcast a listen. Please give us a follow on Instagram or TikTok at pump_pod. You can also tune in on our YouTube or Spotify channels. Last but not least, if you have any questions, comments, concerns on any of the episodes or future episodes coming up, please email harringtonpump@gmail.com. Once again, thank you for listening and hope you can tune in soon.